Welcome to the American Business Podcast. I'm Kevin Deveji, your host. I'm welcoming you episode 164. We are in season 5 in the American Business Podcast. Quote of the day. As you know, we have a great partnership with missionstatements.com, and here is the quote of the day. People only see what they are prepared to see. Okay, great. Well, we have a special guest in the American Business Podcast. I'm going to invite our guest to our virtual stage and we'll get the conversation started. Hello, Dr. Christy McMillan. Welcome to the American Business Podcast.
Thank you, Kevin. I am so excited to get to be a part of this.
I appreciate it. It's very nice to meet you, and thank you so much for your time, and thank you for being with us. How are you? How is your week going? How your week started? Let's ask that way.
I am well, and life is good. We have no reason to complain, right? We're only able to see what we're prepared to see, according to your quote. And I think that's so valuable to remember because what we focus on is what we're going to see. So we need to be thoughtful about that. We talk a lot about that when I'm working with people. So yeah, it makes all the sense in the world.
Yes, absolutely, and this is really good. Well, we have a lot to cover. Why don't we get started, if that's okay? As a start, would you please introduce yourself and your organization to our audience and to our viewers, please?
Absolutely. Hi, my name is Dr. Christy McMullen, and I have the honor and privilege of serving as the CEO and founder of Intentionality Group. And what we do is we help you get down to the problem behind the problem, and we help you work with your humans. So I believe in human first leadership, and I also know that nobody wants to be bad at their jobs. So how can we equip people to be really excellent at their jobs by giving them the right tools in their tool belt? I believe also wholeheartedly that if we don't make work fun, people quit. So I'm also going to talk a little bit today about how you create a little more productive joy. That's me in a nutshell.
Well, thank you for this introduction. By the way, where are you connecting out, though?
I am in Largo, Florida. So if you have no idea where that is, it's the peninsula next to the big peninsula, Pinellas County. So Tampa Bay area of Florida.
Okay, yeah, that's such a beautiful place. And I'm glad that you made time to, connect us, join us today. I appreciate it.
Well, I'm really honored that you asked.
Thank you so much. Well, okay. How about your career journey? How did you get started? How your career journey has unfolded over the years?
Kind of a fun one. So I am an educator by trade. I started out teaching high school. I thought that that's what I would do my entire career. And about 6 years into teaching, I was pulled out of the classroom and asked to start teaching adults. Believe it or not, there are people who teach teachers, and that was my job. And I absolutely loved it. And what I discovered was that I have a knack for creating the correct conditions for learning to happen. And I would argue that every single one of us is teaching people things all day long, every day. But many of us have never been equipped to do that well. And so what I decided to do I wrote my book in 2020, but I wrote a book called Learning Can Stick. And the idea behind the book is that every learning experience should be safe, logical, fun, and memorable. And if it isn't, people will check out on you. So I decided to take that out of the education space and put it squarely in the industry space. And I've worked with lawyers and doctors. I've worked with healthcare workers. I've worked with mortgage brokers and real estate agents. And in every one of those circumstances, those 4 conditions remain true. And so what we do now is we work with organizations to teach them how to create those 4 conditions, and we can go deeper into that if you want to, but ultimately you have to create an environment where people can relax enough and it's psychologically safe enough for people to be able to absorb information. And I'm not talking about like learning. I'm talking about meetings, running trainings, running conversations with people. If you don't make it safe, logical, fun, and memorable, people just don't listen. So I've had the honor and privilege of being a true educator all the way through, but not an educator in the way you might think. Instead, as somebody who works with leaders to make sure that they are being great educators too.
Yeah, this is it's a great journey. And about your book, by the way, so when can our how can our audience can get your book? It's on Amazon or any other
It
channel?
is. So I actually have two. My book, so it's behind me right there.
Oh,
Called Learn.
yes.
Yes, it's called Learning Can Stick. You can get it on Amazon. And so Learning Can Stick, a guide to make every learning experience safe, logical, fun, and memorable. And then I have a tiny book. You can see next to it, little bitty, is kind of a pocket version of the key concepts of that book. And that's the kind of thing that you could use to hand to somebody and help them quickly understand the concepts behind the whole book. So both of those are available on Amazon.
Yeah, this is great. Yeah, I love pocket books myself as well. Easy to
Yeah,
carry,
it
very
would fit right
helpful.
there in your jacket pocket.
Nice. Yes, I like that. Yes. Well, thank you for this information. This is great. Um, just to follow up what you just mentioned. So, how can companies, organizations, and leaders create a safe environment for their employees and teams?
Yeah, so psychological safety is different from physical safety, right? Physical safety is important, but that psychological safety ultimately means that people are allowed to ask questions, make mistakes, and not know the answers. And when we think about creating a psychologically safe environment, which is something I've studied and learned a lot about, is ultimately it starts with the leaders, and they have to be vulnerable enough to admit when they don't know answers. And that's really hard sometimes because as the leader, I think we in our minds think we're supposed to have all the answers, and the reality is you can't. You've got to rely on your people. So what do you do to create that environment? Sometimes it's as simple as learning people's names and knowing whether or not they have kids or pets or whatever. It starts there, but it goes deeper than that. It's learning to be clear with your expectations. So Brene Brown and I are besties. She doesn't know that part. I'm working on her knowing that I'm her bestie. But ultimately, Brene Brown says, clear is kind, unclear is unkind. If we don't choose to be clear with our expectations, that's not safe, right? If I don't know that I can say, hey, Kevin, you know what? I don't think we did that the best way possible. If you're going to yell at me for that, I'm never going to tell you again. So that psychologically safe work environment isn't just butterflies and bubbles. It's actually conflict that's productive and that you can do safely so that people don't run from that conflict, but instead run towards it.
That's a great insight. Okay, well, let's talk about your industry a little bit. A general information that you can share with us about the state of your industry, if that's okay.
So the state of education right now is interesting. And when I'm talking about education, I'm talking about traditional education, public school systems, because I also still work in many of those. And that industry is a bit of a mess because there's a lot of unknown. But I would say that translates into every business right now. There's a lot of unknown. And you can either run towards change or away from it, but it's inevitable. And so all change comes with loss. And I think that's what my industry is facing right now is some loss of the way we've always done it. And I would argue that anybody listening right now is feeling that we've always done it this way, but that doesn't exist anymore, or AI has changed it, or our circumstances look different. So instead, I lean into the human side because that's the part that hasn't changed. We still need our humans to do the things that they need to do to get the best results, whether that's leaning into AI or not. So the state of our industry in education specifically is very unknown, but I do believe that that translates into all industries. And I work with, like I mentioned, lots of different types of industries, and they're all feeling that same thing. So we got to lean into the humans.
Well, you just mentioned AI, and that's one of the popular subjects in the American Business Podcast. How do you see the impact of AI on business, and in this particular case, on education nowadays?
Well, it's not going anywhere, and we all need to embrace it. So we should start with that, right? We cannot hide from the fact that nothing is going to look exactly the way it did a year ago or 5 years ago. It's certainly not going to look the same in a year. And so I think that our focus right now has to be on the humans, because ultimately the jobs that those humans used to do are not going to exist anymore. And so the people side of things has to be poured into. We have to pay attention to those who are there and make sure that they know how to interact with one another, how to get the best possible results from those AI tools. And they also have to feel equipped to create the kind of collaboration necessary to get the best possible results. So I'm not afraid of AI. I'm kind of excited about it. And I recognize that the human side has never mattered more. And that's really the part that I understand and know how to fix.
Well, leadership. How would you define leadership? And what are the great leadership qualities a good leader must have?
A good leader, a great leader, needs, well, okay, let's say it this way. A good leader needs to know their people, but a great leader needs to know how to leverage the talents of those people. So when I think about leadership, great leadership is being able to admit that you're not holding all the answers, that the brilliance is actually in the room. And when you think about those great leaders, they not only know that the brilliance is in the room, but they ask the brilliance to act. So it's putting people in the right seats so that they are able to be successful. It's knowing people's talents and skill sets so that you're not asking someone who isn't good at something to do that something when the person sitting next to them is actually excellent at it. So I actually do a really fun personality test. I even did a TEDx on it once. The TEDx is called I'm a bold flavor. And I am, and I know I am. And it's because that's how I'm wired, right? So our brains are actually wired with hormones that are called neurosignatures. And I've given 4 titles to those. So you are either a paperclip, a magnifying glass, a teddy bear, or a slinky. And that personality test allows you to quickly determine who you have in the room. And then you get those people to do the things that they're supposed to be doing. I think that the most important leadership lesson we can have is not asking people to do things because it's part of their job description, but asking them to do the things that they're actually wired to do so that you get the best results.
Have you had any role models, any mentors who help you shape your career journey over the years?
Definitely. So the one that comes to mind is Dr. Robin McCoy. Dr. McCoy was my boss for, gosh, well, she was a colleague first, and then she was my boss for years. And what Robin taught me, among other things, was that it's okay to be authentically yourself as long as you are encouraging others to do the same. And she also taught me to set guardrails so that work doesn't become all consuming. And I think that's the leadership lesson that I took from her. The biggest one is that we all have jobs that are all consuming. But if we don't put guardrails in place, what happens is we start trying to pour from an empty cup. We've given everything we can, and we're answering emails at 10 p.m. and again at 5 a.m., and we're never stopping the work, and our families suffer. So what she taught me was setting clear guardrails allows you to bounce off of those guardrails when you start to get out of whack. If you think about, like, if you're bowling and you put the guardrails into the gutters, you can't actually get a gutter ball. That's the kind of guardrails she set. So she would say, all right, listen, team, I will never reach out to you after 5 p.m. unless it is a life or death situation and you will get a text message from me. But you do not need to check your email after 5 p.m. And that's rare in today's business because we're all working from our phones and we're constantly in that go mode, right? But what she recognized is if I don't ask my people to turn off that go, because they're overachievers, they're never going to, and then they're going to burn out. So she taught me how to protect the humans. Obviously, there's a theme here, right? But she taught me how to make sure that the people involved had the tools necessary to be able to care for themselves and their families first. So shout out, Robin, I love you.
That's great. Well, key career lesson. If there is one key career lesson that you learned the hard way, what would it be that you can share with us? And if there's more than one, we'll take it too.
Gosh, there are many, but I think the one I'm going to lean into is learning to trust your instincts enough to make bold decisions. because if you think about how business actually works, it's really about getting the right people to know the right things to be able to create the right product. But first, you have to define right, and then you have to decide what success will actually look like. And I had to learn to trust that I brought something unique to the table. I think I have worked with many leaders over the years in lots of different industries. And what I've discovered is the successful ones are the ones that trust themselves enough to be confident enough to say, I do know or I don't know. And the ones that can't do that, the ones that struggle with that self-confidence, are the ones that tend to micromanage and make things very uncomfortable for everyone around them out of fear, not out of a desire to succeed. And when we operate out of that spirit of fear, we tend to cut our nose off to spite our face, right? Like we're not necessarily creating a space where people can thrive because we're so worried about whether or not we're going to get the credit.
Okay, well, we have a little tradition in the American Business Podcast. I have a question for you coming from our previous guest, and I'll ask you to leave me a question as well for our coming guest. And the question coming from our previous guest is, what is your one advice for new business owners after years of experience that you have? What would it be, your advice?
Okay, so I'm going to go back to your quote at the beginning about what we focus on is what we see, right? We have to be prepared to see the thing, right? So my one piece of advice for new business owners is to decide what success looks like and then look for it. We often say, I want to be successful, but we don't define success. And by not defining success, we don't know if we ever got there or not. So it's learning to focus on what we're trying to accomplish instead of all of the stuff that gets in the way. When we focus on the good, we see the good. When we focus on the bad, we see the bad. So you choose. So that's my piece of advice for new business owners. It's not going to go perfectly. It's not going to be beautiful yet. But where you put your focus is 100% what you're going to see. So choose wisely.
What is your question for the next guest in the American Business Podcast?
Okay, so I believe that if you don't make work fun, people quit. So my question is, what are you doing today specifically that is creating productive joy?
Okay, we'll make sure to ask that question. Thank you very much. All right. So do you have any question that you would like to ask me in this episode?
Sure, Kevin. So you have created a very successful podcast in the last year, but this isn't your day job, right? Like this is just part of what you are doing.
Yes.
What impact are you trying to make on the world by creating the American Business Podcast?
Yes. So my goal is, and the impact that I'm working on creating is to create this educational environment to help professionals learn from each other. That is actually my main goal. Professionals, experts like yourself and others join us in the American Business Podcast in this friendly, comfortable environment that we ask questions and we learn from you, and other professionals listening to us, they learn from your insights and they share their insights with others as well. This is just like a carousel, right? They basically just like a loop that everyone shares with each other and creating this educational environment. Moreover, not only in terms of thoughts, we also organize monthly networking events. So literally, professionals can actually join that event and make connections in terms of business networking. So that's our goal, and we are working hard on it every week.
I love that. That's perfect. Well, and I am so honored to get to be a teeny tiny part of that. So thank you for
of course.
thinking I had something to add, some value.
No doubt about it. Yes. It's such an honor to have you, and thank you so much, of course. All right. Well, let's talk about next generation. What is your career advice for the next generation professionals?
So I'm the mother of...
I'll just, before, sorry about that, just also... a little bit of more background information in terms of why we are asking this question. So especially new graduates, they are struggling. So it's getting more difficult to get entry-level jobs. There is a shift in the market. We are seeing, for example, computer science department used to be very popular among the next generation. Now they are leaving that department, going to other departments, for example. And the impact of AI is also
Huge.
impacting the career market, the job market in general. So from that point of view, if you can share some of your advice, that'll be great. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm the mother of 25-year-old twins, one of which is married, so that gives me another daughter, and then we have a bonus adopted daughter. So
Okay.
I have three 25-year-olds and a 26-year-old in my space. So this question means a lot to me.
Okay.
And
Spot
um,
on.
right. When I think about the next generation, I think the advice that I would have is learn how to interact with others. That is your number one goal. If you can successfully not just interact with others, but get them to a product, whatever that product might be, that's the skill that organizations are going to need, is who can orchestrate work to happen by interactions with humans. Because yes, we can learn all kinds of specific trades, but the reality is even, our therapists are becoming chat GPT, and like we are losing some of the most consistent spaces we've ever had. But we're not going to lose the fact that the humans are still going to exist. So if you know how to interact with others and are able to drive conversations towards product, I think that that's the most successful thing that the next generation can focus on, is how do I interact with others and how do I bring value to that space so that people can be more successful because I'm around.
For those who like to continue this conversation and get in touch with you, what is the best way that they can get in touch with you?
Google my name. That's the easiest way. But ultimately, LinkedIn is a fantastic place for us to spend some time. So just Dr. Christy McMullen on LinkedIn. Also, our website, intentionalitygroup.com, or you can just email me directly at Christy, CHRISTIE, at intentionalitygroup.com. And I would love to chat. That would be so much fun.
Dr. Christy McMullen, thank you so much for being with us in the American Business Podcast. Thank you for sharing your professional insights and your professional wisdom in the
Well,
American Business
you.
Podcast.
Thank you for creating a space for people to learn.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much, and I wish you a great week.
Thank you, you too.
And to our audience, to our listeners, and to our viewers, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. We'll be right back after a short break. Thank you. Welcome to the American Business Podcast. I'm Kevin Deveci, your host. I'm welcoming you episode 161. We are in season 5 in the American Business Podcast, the voice of American business. Quote of the day, as you know, we have a great partnership with missionstatements.com, and here's the quote of the day. If you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. Okay, great. Well, we have a special guest in the American Business Podcast. Let's invite our guest to our stage and let's get the conversation started. Hello, Dana. Welcome to the American Business Podcast.
Hi, Kevin. Thank you so much. Nice to see you, and thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. It's very nice to meet you in the American Business Podcast. Thank you for joining us. How are you? How is your week going so far?
Good. I'm happy it's the end of the week. It's Friday. Looking forward to the weekend. It was a great week, but it was a long one.
Yeah, this is good. Yes, absolutely. Yes, I love Fridays as well, and especially for the American Business Podcast interviews. Friday is the best day. So I think we picked the right day for the interview. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Where are you connecting from?
I'm connecting from New York as well. So
Okay.
we're neighbors, but in this
Yes.
city with millions. But I'm coming to you live from Manhattan today.
Yes, yeah, this is good. Yes, I mean, we love the fact that we are actually streaming from New York City, which is the capital of the business for the US, for the nation, as well as globally. So that's a privilege for us. And actually, earlier this month, we celebrated our first anniversary, and we had the honor of receiving certificate of recognition from the city of New York. So that was such an honor. Yes, that was great. So yeah, we are very happy to receiving that, and that's very motivational. And yeah, it's a privilege to stream from New York and to the nation, of course. This is a great experience.
Congratulations. I knew about the year, but I didn't know about the recognition. So.
Yes. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Well, I've been looking forward to this conversation. We love to learn from you, from your professional insights today. Why don't we get started? As a start, would you please introduce yourself and your organization to our listeners and to our viewers?
Absolutely. My name is Dana Edelman, and I am a corporate affairs professional. I currently work with a firm called LSG, and we are a public affairs and strategic communications firm that sits at the intersection of public affairs, communications, and helping clients, navigate all of the challenges that they might have to face in today's environment. So, as you can imagine, it's every day looks a little bit different, and every day is exciting. We work across different industries as well, so we get to see it all. But I come to the consultancy side from Heineken, where I spent over a decade working for their operations in the US, as well as in Europe and in Southeast Asia. And really got to not only explore different cultures and working environments during my time there, but touch everything in the communications landscape, from crisis communication to transformation, change management, internal comms, brand communications as well. So I like to think I'm a jack of all trades in that sense. And I got to see and work with every type of function, from marketing to sales to supply chain, over those 10 years.
Yes, you just mentioned international business and your experience. That's great. So, as an American podcast, we are of course US oriented. At the same time, we have a large audience, international audience, in different parts of the world. So we always welcome anything about international business as well. Also, I understand you're also a published author. Would you like to tell us about it?
I am. Yeah, I published my first book, the youngest one in the room.
Congratulations.
A few months ago. Thank you. And it's been a joy to bring this story to life. It's a memoir of the first 10 years and of my career and how I navigated the corporate ladder in those first 10 years. And, it's an interesting one because it's done upon reflection, and I'm still progressing in my career, but we don't have a lot of people who take the time to look back and reflect after that first decade. And that's what the book became. And I've heard from readers across different industries and different generations that there's something for everyone in there, whether you're first starting a career or you're at the very end. or even those who have retired. It gave them a lot of inspiration, when looking back and forcing them to think about their careers, the highs, the lows, and what they learned from all of it. So yeah, it's available on Amazon and barnesandnoble.com. And it's great graduation gifts for those about to enter the workforce. But also, I've heard it's making for a great team gift as well.
Oh, wow, that's wonderful.
Yes.
This is great. Well, congratulations with the book. And what made you write the book?
Really great question. A few years ago, it's back in 2021, I was doing a bit of career exploration of where I wanted to take my career next and working with an executive coach. And she really encouraged me to start writing down some of these stories I was telling her. And that I fell into her trap of trying to figure out what was the learning with each story. But what she gave me was the gift of reflection. And that, as I grow in my career, has stuck with me. And as I kept writing for her, I realized, this is a human story at the end of the day, and your story is going to look very different than my story, but we can learn from each other. And you might make the same mistakes I made, but in a very different situation and scenario. Until you go through it yourself, it's not going to stick. But then when you read someone else's story, there's that resonance as well, and some aha moments. So, I took a leap of faith and I put my story out there. And now the best part is getting to meet people like you and hearing their stories.
Yeah, this is great. Well, how did you get started? Can you tell us about your career journey a little bit?
Absolutely. I entered the workforce at a tricky time. It was at the height of the financial collapse. And I remember at that time trying to decide, which route do I want to go? My degree from university was in journalism. Journalism was beginning to die. The rise of social media was up and coming, and the whole landscape was changing. And so I found my way to a consultancy at the time, a communications consultancy. And while I was there, I started to realize two things. One, I really enjoyed getting to know my clients and their business. And two, I actually want to be inside of one of these businesses, and I want to be helping to drive internal business strategy and helping to grow a business. And I guess then there was like a third pillar as well of I want to do that on an international scale. So I spent a few years learning all that I could from a communications landscape. How do you work with executives? How do you tell a brand story? How do you launch a new product? How do you launch a new campaign? How do you work with a bank during the foreclosure crisis? And I just tried to act as a sponge. And that, after a few years, took me to join Heineken. And from there, get myself into the corporate world. And then that global career took off from there.
What is the secret of your success?
Curiosity. I think always wanting to know more, why or what or how. When I first joined Heineken, I had become a communications expert, but I didn't know much about business. I didn't have an MBA. I didn't have your typical background to end up in a corporate position like that. And I learned because I was curious. I asked questions. I tried to, again, be a sponge. I wanted to know how the supply chain worked, and I wanted to understand why marketing, where the insights were coming from that was driving creative campaigns. How does sales work? How does sales work in the alcohol industry, which is regulated and not direct to consumer? We go through in the US what's called the 3-tier system through distributors. So staying curious, trying to go to uncomfortable places and get out of my comfort zone was definitely a theme in those early years for building and growing.
Well, okay. How about your industry? Can you tell us the state of your industry nowadays?
Yeah. Every industry is changing, right? So I can talk about this from a few different angles. I'll give the brief highlight of, from a public affairs and communications perspective, those used to be two very separate lanes. You had, what was going on from the government perspective, whether that be state, local, federal, and then you had communications, and they have morphed so much over the last few years. No company can get out there and say anything without taking into consideration what repercussions it might have from a regulatory standpoint. So that's definitely one shift in my specific field. That said, having come out of the alcohol industry, we're looking at major shifts in consumer preference with, Gen Z on average drinking less than older generations. So like, how is that shifting the beverage innovation landscape? It is greatly. And, we read about that in the news quite often, whether you're inside the industry or without. But I think the real thing, and I know we'll get into this in a little bit, so I don't want to touch too much about it, is how does technology, AI in particular, play a role in all of this, whether it's changing the corporate landscape or the individual functions within the corporations. Everyone's being impacted by it. And if you're not becoming buddies with the robots, you're getting left behind.
Yes, actually, that was my last question, and you just actually talk about a little bit. The impact of AI is something that we talk about in the American Business Podcast, because of the impact on business models, small businesses, mid-sized businesses, as well as enterprise-size organizations, of course. Just to continue this conversation, how do you see the impact of AI on business nowadays?
My answer today is very different from what my answer would have been a few years ago. And I like to think that's because of progress, right? You start to realize the magnitude of the change, and then you figure out how to make peace with it. It's its own change journey in itself. But I like to look at AI as, let's go back in time to, the early 1900s when we had the Industrial Revolution sweeping across the globe, and in the US in particular, right? So we went from factories that relied on the hands of the humans to machines. And could you imagine if we lived at that time, everyone probably was freaking out, right? What's going to happen to my job? I'm not going to have a job. I'm going to be out on the streets because the machine is coming. Fast forward now, here we are again, and we're at this incredible turning point where there's a lot of fear out there. There's a lot of unknown, there's a lot of uncertainty. But if we can learn from the past, I think we all should have a little bit of faith that we will evolve, our jobs will evolve, and there will be a place for all of us in this new order. And so I can't predict the future. I don't know what the future of, my industry looks like. But what I can say is I definitely don't want to be one of those people who is pretending like it's not going to happen. So I try to embrace it as much as I can. As someone who prides themselves on writing, it can be really hard to go to Claude or to ChatGPT and ask them to do something for me. But I know I have to. And I've been playing a lot over the last year and a half, as we all have. And also took a course through Harvard Business School that got into the essentials of AI for business. And I recommend, it doesn't have to be Harvard, it could be, any institution or organization. But if anyone feels like they've fallen behind or they're not quite there yet, jump in, educate yourself, get out there and figure out how to become part of the transition and transformation instead of being behind it.
How do you define leadership, and what are the great leadership qualities a good leader must have?
I think a great leader needs to listen louder than you speak, which might seem counterintuitive to many leaders who think they always have to have the answer or be the strongest voice. I actually found that that's not true. More often than not, that backfires, particularly when you're stepping into a new role or a new executive position. Listen, go on that listening tour, learn, understand, obviously start formulating your own strategy and vision, but don't discount the voices around you. So I think leadership, and tied with that, just high EQ, right? Like having that ability to understand and connect. You might sit in opposing functions, but how do you be the one to be the connector and find commonality to work together and to move the needle forward?
Have you had any role models, any mentors who help you shape your career journey over the years?
I absolutely have. Many of them I'm still in contact today. I still would consider them role models and active mentors. And I think as I progress in my career and I try to be a role model and a mentor for those coming up in the industry or in business, um, a few things stick out. I've always really appreciated the time that people have given me, but I've never taken that for granted. Everyone's busy. So how do you really maximize the time that you get with your mentor or role model? And I think a lot of that stems on being prepared. Going back to what I was saying earlier, be curious. When you do get the time, try to be a sponge, but don't force that person to do all the talking. You should be the one with the agenda to, ask the questions. And I think that's what's worked well over the years, and why some of my role models and mentors have, consistently been around and been supportive of my career.
If there is one key career lesson that you learned the hard way, what would it be that you can share with us?
I'm going to give you two.
Okay, we'll take it.
Okay. The first is learn how to say no. I think, especially when you're younger in your career, you want to be open-minded. You want to take on all the learning experiences that you can, but you need to be intentional about your time. Otherwise, the job runs the risk of running you instead of you running the job. So figure out that balance, figure out a way to say no, ruthlessly prioritize. That would be number one. Number two, take a risk. If someone says something to you and it makes your stomach drop, you might want to go do the thing, whether that be trying something that you've never done before, moving to a different function, even if you swing back to your original function, just to get that experience. And then I always have to give a plug for, if someone says to you, will you move here? Say yes. Even if it's on the other side of the world, even if it's inconvenient for the family, you'll figure it out. And it will be one of the best learning and growth experiences that you could ever give yourself.
We have a little tradition in the American Business Podcast. I have a question for you coming from our previous guest, and I'll ask you to leave me a question. In this episode, I'll ask your question to our coming guest in the next episode. And the question for you from our previous guest is, how do you prepare your business for the unexpected?
It is the $1 million question. I think the question started to arise during COVID in 2020 when everyone went, you don't have a playbook for this. And I think the answer is, you need to scenario plan. You need to constantly be assessing risk, but you also need to be flexible and resilient, because we've seen in the last few years that the unimaginable will all of a sudden become imaginable. So how can you prepare for the unimaginable? You don't want to be totally caught off guard. So there are, of course, things that you can do, like risk analysis and whatnot. And make sure that is, whether it's something that's coming through a regulatory function, communications, legal, that conversation is prioritized and has a seat at the table, because that's something that can help you as a business navigate when inevitably the unexpected arises.
I love the risk assessment part of the operations, especially scenario-based, thinking about scenarios, preparing for them. So for this type of studies, internal studies, how often a company must do it?
Yeah, really good question. In my experience, I've seen it done on a monthly basis. I've seen it done on a quarterly basis, biannual basis. I'm a fan of quarterly. if you can start the year with a very clean, what are the top 5 risks, top 10 risks, have them ranked in a traffic light fashion,
Mhm.
and then it should be each executive owner or functional owner should have onus to one or more of the risks and be working consistently with their team to track. And then, of course, if something should get elevated from a green to a yellow, from a yellow to a red, that should be coming before the quarter check-in mark. So I would say from a process perspective, quarterly at probably the executive or board level, but monthly on an ongoing basis within the individual teams, just to make sure that you're not sleeping on a green to a red, and then you've got yourself a big issue.
What is your question for the next guest in the American Business Podcast?
So I think no matter what industry you're in nowadays, whether you're on the corporate side, whether you're at an NGO, government entity, a big bank, the buzzword is transformation.
Mm-hmm.
So the question in that would be, how do you see transformation playing out in the next few years? And do you think it's a buzzword that will go away, or will we forever in the near term be in this transformative state?
Okay, perfect. We'll make sure to ask that question. Thank you very much.
Yes,
in this episode, is there any question that you would like to ask me?
Yeah, you have such an interesting background, and I'd love to hear from you a little bit on, how did you get to where you are today, and what are some of your key learnings as well?
Yes, well, that's a great question. So, yeah, well, we are all, like, when you come to a certain stage in the career journey, especially when you become senior, decades of experience, you are a product of your experience, really. Like, what you have experienced, what you learn, it just makes you who you are right now professionally. So that's what I'm seeing. Like, when I'm look at my professional career, it's a mix of industries: manufacturing, import, export, technology, consulting, professional services. So all these, like, after a while, just accumulates and make you who you are. So that's what I'm seeing. And you never know what the life will bring you, really, in terms of professional experience and what you'll see. You just accept it. You just work with it. Do your best. Learn as much as you can. And that's what I see for the American Business Podcast over the years. So nowadays, when I'm looking at the American Business Podcast, it's actually a platform that we invite professionals like yourself, and we learn from professionals. That's the platform. And I love creating these environments. That's what I learned over the little over a year with the American Business Podcast. I love facilitating and creating the environment that others can learn from each other in a meaningful way. So that's what I will say. And there are a lot of lessons that we learn in the American Business Podcast. So this is our 161st episode. And each professional, they bring a wealth of knowledge and professional insight, which is a blessing for us to learn from. And some of the insights that we learn in terms of having character, having leadership, having the hard work, and also being open-minded, and just like you mentioned earlier, being curious, like to learn new things, because the change is constant and we need to stay on top of it. So we won't be outdated. Actually, we'll learn and we'll improve ourselves and the organization. So these are really important lessons that I've been learning from professionals, from yourself and others as well. At the end of the day, though, see, we need to always keep these in mind, and we need to put it to work. Like the hard work, the discipline, no one is going to do it for you. We got to do it ourselves, right? So we have to keep it in mind, keep these principles and strategies in mind, and then put the work. Yep. That hard work is there for us to deliver. I mean, that's what I've been seeing. So that's amazing. I mean, that's why sometimes I see the American Business Podcast as a school.
Yes.
So we learn from each other. Of course, that's a great opportunity for me that I'm learning from professionals like yourself and others. And having these is very important. And
You may even turn that into an official certificate, right? If you've listened to 20 episodes, maybe you get this sort of accreditation, or 100 episodes.
I love this idea. I never thought about it. That's great. Thank you for saying that. Yes.
Cool, and certification program.
I love that. Yes. Why don't we do that? Because
Yep.
see, the first we start as a podcast, and then we turn it out to be a network because we have segments now. We talk about variety of business subjects, and now it's going to become a media and business platform. So it's actually evolving, and definitely the education is already there, but then certifying it and documenting it is I think that's a great idea. So definitely that's something doable. Yeah, thank you for that.
Of course.
I love this conversation. Okay, great. Well, what is your career advice for the next generation professionals?
Hard question. I know each generation comes with its stereotypes, the good and the bad. And I
That's true.
think my biggest piece of advice for Gen Z would be stay young, or sorry, stay don't stay young. We all grow old. You can't stay young. Stay young at heart. Stay curious. Stay curious and stay hungry. Keep that ambition, but also marry it with that curiosity, because that will become a powerful cocktail. Don't accept things just because that's the way they've always been. And I think the older generations will be looking to the new generations to show them the way in terms of technology transformation, and just as it's always been. And so be the teacher as much as the listener, as much as the student. Be respectful, but yeah, just go for it. Show up, do the job. Yeah.
For those who like to be in touch with you, learn more about you, your organization, and continue this conversation, what is the best way that they can get in touch with you and
Yeah,
learn about your company?
sure. So 2 ways to do that. Either feel free to follow me on LinkedIn. Dana Edelman is my name. You can find me there. Or go to danaedelman.com, my website, and you can learn more about my book. It will send you off to LinkedIn as well, or there are other ways to connect.
Dana, thank you so much for sharing your professional insights and your professional wisdom with us in the American Business Podcast.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, and I wish you a great weekend.
You too. Enjoy.
Thank you very much. And to our audience and to our listeners, I hope you enjoyed today's episode, another informative educational episode in the American Business Podcast. Thank you for watching and thank you for listening. We'll be right back after a short break. Thank you.